You're so right. And even just listening to you, it just makes me think, wow. And I know we've had these discussions about financial literacy being part of like primary education and high school education. Like it needs to start earlier. It really needs to be a part of what we do. And it's interesting. I even think about like the game Monopoly, and people know how to play that, but it would be so interesting if Monopoly could be updated, right? To actually include, because Monopoly is based on cash, but what if it could be based on credit and based on purchasing a home with a mortgage and those type of things. So there's a lot there. I feel like we got some business ideas that we need to explore, right? Okay.
Let me write that down.
Hold on.
You are listening to the Real Estate Proverbs Podcast with host Kevin Jefferson. This is the #1 podcast for African American real estate professionals who are doing extraordinary things. It's time to tune in. And now, your host, the People's Lender, Kevin Jefferson.
Welcome to Real Estate Proverbs Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Jefferson, and today we have a guest by the name of Dr. Lee Davenport. How are you, Dr. Lee?
Hey, Kevin. I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking us up on the opportunity. Dr. Lee, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, so I am a real estate, you could almost call it a corporate trainer, as well as a coach where I coach agents individually, I coach teams, and it's a long story on how I got there. So
we got time. Let's get it.
Okay. So I'll try to give the condensed version. I always say growing up. And when I say that, like if I'm teaching a class, people are like, oh my God, is she really getting ready to go all the way back? But I have to give the context because I am second generation. So my dad, my parents literally were mom and pop investors because they were my mom and pop. They had different real estate apartment buildings, properties in Michigan. And I'm originally from Michigan, and I hated it growing up because I'm an only child and I'm a girly girl. So I wear dresses. Even my logo I have a dress on in it. But being the only child meant I had to cut grass. It meant if tenants trashed the place, I was on the cleanup crew. And I promise you, I resented it. So I fast forward, I graduate from University of Michigan, go blue, and I get on I-75 from Detroit to Atlanta like it was on fire because I was done. I love my family, but I was like, I'm out of there. Cold weather, working for free, I'm out of there. So I get here to Georgia. I start working in my church's basement in accounting. I have a business degree, and that was horrible. That was for the birds. So I'm like, you know what am I doing? All of my friends and family, they were like, real estate. And this was before the market crash. So everybody's like, why aren't you in real estate? So I buy my first property, and then I start investing. I start buying quads, smaller apartment buildings, and it was good. And I started to understand why my parents were doing it because now I got to see the money. I was no longer child labor. It was no longer free. So I was like, oh, this is good. Until it wasn't. So fast forward, recession, 2008 comes, 2009, and I would say probably 95% of my tenants were upside down. And I was like, I don't know what to do because I'm not the person that said, well, kick them out and just get new tenants. Because I'm sociable and I am who I am, they were like friends and family to me. So anyway, instead of kicking everybody out, I decided, like a crazy person, why don't I get my real estate sales license? This is the perfect time to sell real estate. It wasn't because the market was crashing, but I get my sales license. My brokers at the time were like, oh, door knock, cold call, do a lot of the traditional things, which I'm not against, but they weren't working for me. And I remember I stumbled across this unknown thing because it was 2008, Facebook. It wasn't really popping for business. And I remember someone telling me, who was a coach and a guru, they were like, Facebook, that's for teenagers. You need to be on MySpace. That's what's going to be around, which I laugh at today because MySpace is nowhere to be found. But anyway, so I get on Facebook, my business took off so much so that I had to build a team. And my brokers were like, what are you doing? Come in, do some training. So that was the start. I started doing trainings. I became eventually managing broker of those RE/MAX offices. And from there, I decided to take the show on the road. I created my own training company, and I've been doing that since 2014. So almost 10 years, not quite though. So that's the long, short version of the story.
So let's dig into that. Why training?
Yeah, okay. So the other piece is, even though, so my parents, mom and pop investors, but my grandmother, my great grandmother, my granddad, and these are all people I grew up with, all teachers. So I'm also from a teaching background. So even as a kid, I was the little kid that for play, I would be writing on the chalkboard and teaching the class. So that's the other part of me. So I basically married what my family has done, real estate and teaching.
Got you. So do you do training for NAR?
I have done, yes. And I say it kind of hesitantly because I also write op-eds, and I've written some controversial op-eds on fair housing and the fact that we need to do certain things to make sure, particularly Black people, but people of color are getting their piece of the pie or the piece of the salad or whatever you want to call it. So I'm a little bit on the fringe right now with different groups, but that's okay. I don't mind.
Gotcha. So let's dig into that, right?
Yeah.
So one of the biggest problems we have is, as of last year, we were behind. We own less land now than we did 100 years ago, in a time where we make better money and are probably in better positions, right? What are some things that needs to be worked on a national level as well as local levels to change those things? Because there are some boundaries in our way, right? What do you think are some things that could potentially be changed to kind of shift that curve?
Yeah, there's so many things, Kevin. So I'm not going to bore you with too many of my thoughts on this, but even some of the, I would say, I don't call them smaller, but I mean, they are more doable faster, right? Because, there are some things that we know you got red tape, you got a lot of minutia to get through, but there are other things that we could actually do today and tomorrow. So some of those things include, for me, and this is something that I am not only an advocate of, but I am working very diligently with different associations and organizations. And that is, we need to train real estate professionals, and we need more real estate professionals of color, particularly Black real estate professionals. And when I say professionals, I don't just mean agents. I, of course, mean appraisers, lenders. We need to be in every aspect of the real estate process. Even today, I was looking at an article where in DC as well as in Detroit, they have programs where they are now going to give additional funding to real estate developers of color, because that's all of this is part of the problem. We don't have enough representation. So to your point, we own less. And as a result of owning less, we're not a part of the conversations on what the community is going to develop into and what it's going to look like. And it's very circular, right? It's a vicious cycle. So representation, and part of that representation, again, I think that onus goes to the companies. So the real estate firms, the mortgage companies, the appraisal companies, they need to have, and I can say we, since some of this, still a part of firms, we need to make sure that we have a concerted recruitment effort. We need to, because some of these companies have been the perpetuators of discrimination, even if it's not in 2021, but if this company was around since the 1950s, the 1940s, you most likely did something to keep Black people and people of color out. So you should also now have funds for hey, they don't have to pay to get their license. We have scholarship programs. We have different grants and opportunities for people to go through and become a real estate professional for free. So I'm really looking at pushing increasing representation among the professionals. That's just one thing, and that's a minor thing. There's so much more. I'm all for, we've got the reparations that's happening in Evanston, Illinois, as well as in Asheville. I might be making that up. It's one of the Carolinas. They've got some reparations coming to for people, not from slavery, but for those that were discriminated against during the Great Migration. So from 1920 to 1970, if their family members or even they themselves, because many of them are still living, can show, hey, which it is, that's a whole nother issue to say, can you show discrimination? But the fact that it did exist and the fact that now counties are willing to take money they're getting from, for example, cannabis taxes that's not being used, hasn't been earmarked for anything, take that money and give it back to the people who have been harmed the most. So those are just a couple of things. There's so much though.
Gotcha. So from your standpoint as an educator, what are some things that you are implementing or courses you are writing to help this narrative?
Absolutely. So I'm so excited. We just started a certification. It is like spanking new. We're getting ready to do it with a couple of associations out on the West Coast. But it's a certification. I wrote a book earlier in the year called How to Be an Anti-Racist Real Estate Pro. And now we have the certification program coming from that. And the point of this certification is not just to say, check mark, okay, I sat through a class. It's to, one, give people an opportunity to test their knowledge. Yes, to learn some things, but more importantly, we're going to have a community around it so that as people agents in particularly continuously have questions and they're coming up against things that maybe we didn't talk about in the class, but you still need guidance on because you're an agent that wants to do the right thing, particularly if you're one of our white friends, you want to do the right thing, but you may not always know. I think we need that community so that it can benefit people of color, and again, specifically Black people. So that's one of my favorite things right now. I still do coaching and training on just business development, sales, but really pushing this aspect of empowerment for Black people and people of color is kind of been my vein this year.
Okay. Let's move everybody else out of the equation. The things that have been held against us, the things that stopped us, and still the discriminatory practices that happen now. What can we do as the people to make things better for ourselves? Because while I know that we have some boundaries and barriers against us and things that happen to us, there's still some things that we have to do to help our own situation.
Yeah, so there's several sides to that, right? Because one, unfortunately, in 2021, we are still coming face to face with people that can say, I will be the first generation to own a home in my family. And when we hear that, for me, the bells go off because that says, okay, well, you may not understand that. No, you don't go buy a car the day before you close. No, you don't do, right? So the education piece of it. So I'm a big believer, and I was doing this back in 2008. Part of what I was doing on Facebook was promoting home buyer classes. And I generated a lot of business from that. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I think we need it now more than ever. So it is still, for me, because I have a teaching background, so I'm a little biased, but I always think it's about education. So if people don't understand what it means to repair your credit, what it means to see a house as an investment vehicle, right? And how it can not only just be a place for you to live, but this can turn into how you can pay for your children's college fund, how you can fund a business, right? People don't often understand that. And I think I don't ever put the blame on the community itself, because if you're not exposed to it, how do you know about it? So I put the onus on all of us that are professionals to do more to get the word out. Oftentimes, if we're dealing with people who maybe they are from a family where everybody's owned a home, right? Or they're from a family where they're the third or fourth generation to go to college, they don't necessarily need the education. And I see that too, where we come across people and they don't need us. They're pretty much like, just open the door and move out the way. That's fine. But I think when we focus as an industry only on those people as opposed to those that are the newcomers, then we're hurting our community ultimately. So education, short answer, education.
Gotcha. You're right. We are hurting our own community. It also kind of goes back to financial literacy, right?
Absolutely.
So from the lending standpoint, something that I see is there's a business owner, right? And the business owner has an account and he or she has a job, they're married, with all the good things going on. But then when I get their finances, everything goes into one account. The business, the wife's check, the husband's check from his job. So then that creates questions from an underwriting standpoint. Well, where does $300 come from? No, $300 is not a lot of money, but if it's not your paycheck and it's not from your wife, you have to source it. And yes, we understand you have a business, but the underwriter, and I always tell my clients, the underwriter's not going to have this conversation with you that I'm having. So we're talking it out so I know how we can present it to the underwriter. And well, I have a business and I tell them you need to get a business account. It's simple as that, because it's going to create headache. The underwriter's going to see it. You don't have it established. They're going to ask for a bunch of paperwork that is technically unnecessary if you did what you needed to do, which obviously, when you're doing the business, it's my money, right? But if you're running a business, it's the business's money. And why is the business money in your personal account? We understand that you may get draws because you're operating the business, but it goes back to those little things as to why we have such a hard time getting through underwriting. Case in point, I'm dealing with an artist who doesn't carry their salary on any taxes. Their parents was an artist and they get royalties and they don't carry those funds. So I can't count them. And it's going to make the difference between them being able to buy a house and not. But to her point, she said, it's cash money. I didn't know I needed to count it. And I gave her a scenario, and a dancer. If they want to buy a house, they keep track of the money that they receive and they file taxes. Barbers, before there was Cash App and Zelle and Vimeo, they had to keep track. So it's a matter of keeping track of cash. I mean, I've got landscapers who keep track. It's just a matter of keeping track of your funds. Because you're a business owner or you get an income, the only way to keep track of it is not through a cash register. You see what I'm saying? I think that's what they think. Oh, well, they won't know. But now when you need to use that, am I, Uncle Sam, going to back a loan using money that you don't give me my part to? To me, that money doesn't exist. And that's where we have to have those things in place. And the person listening to this may say, well, how does that have to do with housing? Everything. Because if you can't show the money, you can't buy a house. I don't care who you are. If you can't show me a trail of where the money came from, your best bet is to buy cash.
And your only, yeah.
Yep, that's your only. Yes, even in a bank statement loan, they're going to want to see the business is in business for 2 years,
right?
And that the funds have gone in the bank,
right?
And then you're going to pay a slightly higher interest rate. You're going to have a slightly higher credit score, and then you're going to have a higher down payment. And then that's where the gripe comes in at. The only way around it is to sit down with an accountant or tax preparer, delay you purchasing a home for a little bit until you work this out. If you don't have the larger down payment or don't want to pay the higher interest, those are your only options, which goes back to what started this conversation is the financial education piece, which to me is the biggest barrier for us. I mean, we know how to go to credit repair. We're getting good at that. We're good at that. We're good at, okay, let me get my utilization down 10% so my score can skyrocket. Let me get this secured card, the secured loan. We're getting that. That education is there. It's the part about our money and where it comes from and how we manage it, which is hurting us.
You're so right. And even just listening to you, it just makes me think, wow. And I know we've had these discussions about financial literacy being part of like primary education and high school education. Like it needs to start earlier. It really needs to be a part of what we do. And it's interesting. I even think about like the game Monopoly, and people know how to play that, but it would be so interesting if Monopoly could be updated, right? To actually include, because Monopoly is based on cash. But what if it could be based on credit and based on purchasing a home with a mortgage and those type of things? So there's a lot there. I feel like we got some business ideas that we need to explore, right? Okay.
Let me write that down.
Hold on. That's a good twist.
It's coming to us. Blackopoly.
Hey.
Yep. And you're right. You're right. Jay-Z said it best, we play Monopoly with real cash. You know what I mean? That's how you do it. Essentially, the game of Monopoly can teach you how to be an investor.
All day.
It's just a matter of taking out that fear of using your own funds and going and do it.
Right.
Going and do it. So, with that being said, moving forward, what would be, from an education standpoint, what would be some things that you would advise a real estate professional to do to help push this mission?
Yeah, one of the things that I love about it's so much about social media that's good. We know there's a lot of bad, right? But more than anything, it's an amplifier, it's a megaphone, it's a tool. So I think, I've even again shifted my social media strategy a little bit over the last month. I'm going in on these topics. And I feel like this is what each and every one of us as real estate pros, we need to spend more time doing is, yes, promoting our business. But I think we ultimately promote our business even better when we say to people, hey, that thing you didn't realize that you thought was, oh, that's no big deal. It is a big deal. You living off of mattress money, it is a big deal. And it's going to stop you from being able to cash in on this lucrative real estate market that we're dealing with right now. So I feel like the more we can, and I say that because that means no one has to feel like, oh, I've got to go into a classroom. I don't want to be a teacher. What are you talking about? Oh, I don't want to have even a seminar. Some people don't want to do seminars and webinars. That's fine. But almost all of us, we're using social media to grow our business. So I would love if all of us could dedicate at least just one post a week to what can we educate people about that seems like to us as insiders, this is common knowledge, but to the everyday Black person that, again, may not be, they may be the first in their family to own property or want to own property. What can we do to help them so that they can be better prepared and not be blindsided? I think that's one of the simplest things we can all do.
Gotcha. And yeah, I've seen your post.
I'm Sister Soldier. I'm Sister Soldier. I'm turning into.
But it's needed. I definitely think it's needed. Not only does that message, should it resonate to us as African American professionals, I think it also should resonate to our counterparts, because they may know of the fight, but they may not have a full understanding. Not because they don't want to, they just haven't been exposed to it. So those posts not only touch you and I, it touches our counterparts, our white brothers and sisters, Indian brothers and sisters, Hispanics, Chinese, just different nationalities of understanding what's going on. The statistics show we're behind in home ownership in terms of a whole. We're not only behind in home ownership as real estate professionals, as realtors, our earnings are behind everybody. So we're getting out earned, which then translate to why we're behind in home ownership as well. I think the Black dollar is powerful. I think we have to figure out how to circulate it in our community. There are some great efforts going on, right? But then there's that, well, I do what I want with my money. You know what I mean? Which, that's true. But why isn't you still circulated? Right? You're circulating it somewhere, and it's your money. And that person you're giving it to could care less who you are. Right? So I just think we've got to make a conservative effort to push home ownership. We've got to do a concerted effort to push getting into it. One of my episodes coming up will be with appraisers, because there definitely isn't enough of them that look like us. Like, I'm even considering, and I don't know if it's against any type of RESPA law or anything, just maybe offering a class on how you can do it and possibly establishing some type of fund or scholarship for it, because it does cost. It's not a lot of money, and it's not the sexiest job in real estate, but it's needed. They're important to us. Without them, we don't get values. We don't get values.
Yeah, I'm coming to the place where I almost, I say it hesitantly, but I almost feel like we just need to start boycotting stuff, because it's like, if you aren't going to hire Black people, and it's not that there aren't enough out there, if you're not going to hire Black people in these different roles to level the playing field, then we shouldn't even work with you. I'm getting to that point where if you have no plan, if a company has no plan on how they're going to increase diversity, I think it's almost time out. I think we just have to start taking our business elsewhere. And that's, again, one of the more powerful things we can do. And that will get these businesses to perk up and say, okay, maybe we do need to take this head on. So
I had a conversation with an attorney in the Atlanta market, and she was saying that there's enough business from African-American real estate professionals to where there's enough business from African-American realtors being done that the loan officers, the attorneys, the African-American home inspectors should all be doing well. But we don't get the opportunity. We don't get the same opportunities, right? And we don't get to tiptoe the line. There could be a cool white realtor who's legitimately cool. They get both sides of business. I've done, I'll use my own statistics. If I've done in my last 100 transactions, I've had 98 African American that are buyers, and the realtors, let's say out of that 100 transactions, there was 50 realtors, 48 were African American. That doesn't mean I do a less job than anybody, and that's not who I necessarily target, but that's who gives me the opportunity.
Right.
The other person, one, she had mixed kids, so that helps. And the other one just happened by default because the buyer was Black. I helped her get where she needed to be. And it was either you're going to work with my loan officer that I want, or I'm going to find another agent. And she worked with the loan officer that she wanted. Do I think I'm better than a lot of some of those other loan officers? Yes. But I don't get the opportunity.
Right.
I've even strategically made sure that I communicate with both agents on the transaction, went to closing, and was told, oh, you did a great job keeping us informed. Other loan officers don't do that. I'll definitely try to use you. And then you reach back out and it's crickets. Probably because you can't tell. If you talk to me on the phone, you can't tell what I am. And my name is basic. But when you see me, then you know. And that is, while I'm not surprised, you know what I mean? It's
right.
like, it's still disheartening because I work my behind off to be the best I can. Do I make mistakes? Yes. Do I mess up? Yes. But I make sure I make a valiant effort to own my mistake and make sure that we get to the finish line.
Right.
So like fighting against that, fighting against just the fact that it may not seem like I do business that way. You know what I mean? Like the way that they want it done. It's tough. It's tough. And I know this should be a podcast interview, but to me, in my mind, I knew you and I would dialogue more so than me ask you a bunch of questions. Yeah. Just because me following you, I just figured this would be more of a dialogue than me, saying, hey, Dr. Lee, what about this, this, and that? Just, I like your perspective. And actually what made me change the way that we would talk is your post that I start seeing over the last week and a half. I say, yeah, we're going to talk about this. It needs to be said. It needs to be said. It definitely needs to be said. How long you been in Georgia?
20 years. So my whole adult life. I moved here right after college and haven't looked back.
Okay. You say go blue, right?
Go blue.
What year did you graduate?
I was there 2001. I was there when Tom Brady was there. So back when Michigan was big stuff.
Okay. I started liking Michigan for a while. Of course, because of the Fab Five.
Whoop, whoop. Yeah. I got my jersey in another room.
Okay.
My Fab Five jersey, yeah.
That's awesome. So I remember, and I just had this conversation with my wife when I saw Chris Webber and Jalen Rose, him interviewing him when he got the call for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That was big.
Epic.
That was epic. I could see on Chris Webber's face, I could see his emotion. You know what I mean? Like he didn't cry. I saw the pause and I was like, yeah, because I've always said they need to talk. Jalen has his way of saying things and Chris has his way of being quiet. But one thing that never wavered over the entire 20 some years was they always said they were brothers and we just having a spat.
Right.
So hopefully that opens up the door. I got turned on to the Fab Five, and I just told my wife my favorite substitute was a lady who was a long-term substitute named Miss Turner. And she was our science teacher. And, you know, she was down to earth. I mean, I'm in 7th grade. And she was like, you heard his 5 freshmen starting doing this and that? They're going to make a big run in the NCAA tournament. I was like, no. Because at the time, I'm a Georgetown Hoya fan because of Patrick Ewing.
Oh.
And so, you know, I start following the Fab Five. And then what made her even cool, and I think this is why she was my favorite substitute ever, was when the NCAA tournament started, she brought the TV into the room so we could watch it. So we got to see the Fab Five play during the day.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Nothing to do with real estate. That was just my Michigan story.
Oh, no, I love it. I always, so many people bond with me like, were you there when the Fab Five? I'm like, I'm not that old, but close. I was a couple of years behind them, but that was the whole reason why Michigan was everything to me. I was like, oh, I got to go there.
Yeah, Michigan. Yeah, definitely. Michigan is, they changed the landscape of basketball.
Absolutely.
Baggy shorts, the ball heads, the black socks, the Hirachis, which are going to be re-released in 2022, I heard. I think I heard Jalen Rose say it. Yeah. Awesome. So, Dr. Lee, in all of the great things that you do, tell us about some of the, you know, programs that you are offering or that you teach that people can tap into.
Sure. Yeah. So I, as a corporate trainer, I train at different associations and firms, and we talk about everything, whether it's fair housing and being an anti-racist agent, or if it's just how to profit with your personality, how to market, how to grow your business. So we talk about all those things. But then I also have, for those that are kind of struggling, even in this hot market, I'm still coming across agents that can't figure out where they fit, their mojo, they can't quite place it. So I do have one-to-one coaching, whether it's I have a 4-week program, I've got month to month, I've got all types of things to help people really get their business to the place where it feels genuine to who they are, but it also allows them to tap into, I always like to say at least 10 million in sales volume. That's usually where my agents fall, is 10 million in sales volume and upwards. So.
Gotcha. So what is your, I guess, your niche in terms of coaching? Like who is the ideal client for you?
Yeah, so traditionally it has always been basically anyone that was struggling, right? So not quite a brand new agent, because brand new agents oftentimes need to get trained at their office. There's, you know, just learning the system at your office. You need to learn all of that. And that's not what I do. But if you are struggling, so usually at that 1-year mark to really, for some agents, the 10-year mark, they're still trying to figure it out. They're still dealing with that sales roller coaster, feast or famine. They got deals, then all of a sudden they don't. So that's usually been my people, my children, my babies who I work with. But now, in addition to that, I've added this layer of anti-racism. So for those that are typically not Black, now other people of color still deal with this, right? Where they don't even realize they have unconscious biases towards Black people. So the other piece now is really going in on how to be an anti-racist real estate pro. So that's my other audience. And usually that audience, it's everybody. It's older white people, it's younger Asian people, it's kind of everybody in between. So it's been a fun journey. I haven't gotten too much hate mail, a little bit, but not too much. So
that's to be expected, right?
Yeah.
So your ideal client, they come to you, they've been in the business, let's say 5 year, that 5-year mark, right? And the problem is those valleys and peaks that we see. What are the first two things you analyze in order to fix that issue?
Yeah, so in getting my doctorate, I got a chance to study the top 1,000 US. I always want to clarify because I do have clients from Canada, Singapore, but the top 1,000 US sales agents. And we got a chance to kind of uncover and peel back the layers of what helps make them successful. The first thing that I always like to tell people and help them achieve is the first thing is every successful, and again, when I say successful, for me, quantifiably, that means you're making 10 million, 20 million or more in sales volume. And we studied the people that were not on teams. So if you have a team of 20 agents, of course, you're going to hit 20 million in sales volume, right? We looked at people that were solopreneurs at most, maybe had a virtual assistant, maybe had a spouse helping them do something, but really it was their business. So what we found first off was that every single top producer had at least 5 or more weekly lead generation activities they do nonstop. Now, can you automate some of them? Yes. But it was 5 activities. And oftentimes when I talk to agents struggling, that's the first thing I ask. And almost all of them are only doing 1 or 2 things. So they may say, you know, I'm using social media, I'm calling my database, or I'm door knocking, but they never have more than 5. And that right there is the first problem. And that's why I can tell if someone is on that roller coaster. I can tell you don't have consistent income because you're not doing enough to keep your pipeline full. That's the first thing.
Wow. What would be the second thing?
Second thing is I often come across people that maybe they do have a full pipeline, but they have not, but they are basically trying to put on somebody else's armor. They're trying to do it somebody else's way, and they haven't figured out how to own their own self. And what I mean by that, so in the research I got to do for my doctorate, we looked at the DISC personality profile. I know there's a lot of personality tests out there. You got Myers-Briggs. Some people really like Enneagram. All of that's fine. We just chose this one because it's been around for over 100 years and it has scientific validity. But with DISC, it's only 4 parts. I'll just say what they are really quick. So DISC is an acronym for dominant, influencer, steady, conscientious. So dominant, I'm a D. D's, that's who you typically think of as a salesperson. They are the time is money. Let's go, right? They can make 100 calls and get 99 rejections, but that one yes is all they need, right? Not everybody can handle that. Then you've got the influencer. I call that Chatty Cathy. That's the person who they've never met a stranger. They can walk into any room and all of a sudden start connecting and getting to know people. Then you've got a steady. Steady is one of my favorite people in real estate. They're considered introverted, and some people dismiss introverted personalities and say, oh, if you're introverted, you're not going to be good in sales. Not true. We found that all 4 of the personality types do extremely well when you know your strengths. So with this steady person, they do really well when it's not one and done. So Chatty Cathy can do one and done influencer events. Steady needs events where they see the person again and again. So with the steady personality, we often get them to be a part of community groups where they're meeting with this group once a week. So during this pandemic, I know, we haven't done a lot face to face, but I even had an agent. I was like, just be a part of this. She likes reading. Be in this business book club. Her business book club was meeting every single week. And again, she's not extroverted. So she's not going to say to people, do you need to buy a house? But what I said, hey, you're on Zoom. Make sure every time you get on, you have on some realtor paraphernalia, something that says you're in real estate. And what kept happening to her, especially in this crazy real estate market, people kept messaging her like, oh, you're in real estate. Hey, tell me more about this. What do you think I could get for my house? So that's steady. And then the last one, conscientious, they're also considered more introverted, but they're the person that dots every I, crosses every T. And they too have a way with they're the person I always say they do really well with referrals. If you, for example, were to say, I've got all these people that don't have agents, who should I send them to? This is the person you typically send them to. This conscientious, dot every I, cross every T. They're going to follow up with you. You won't have to chase them down. And as a result, they do high volumes of business when they tap into a referral network. So each personality type has strengths, and we try to help people understand, one, your personality, and two, what you should be doing. And every time we help people and they have that aha moment, that revelation moment, they don't go backwards, because now it's like, no matter what the market is doing, you know yourself and you know how to connect with people based off of who you are. And it's been amazing to watch it. And even through this pandemic, see people really shine. So
how was your coaching business affected during the pandemic?
You know, it was a shift. I wouldn't necessarily say affected. For me, prior to the pandemic, because I'm not only a coach, but a corporate trainer, I was traveling literally every week because I was training, all through the US as well as in other countries. So every week I was traveling. Pandemic came and we went to Zoom. And I hate to say it, but I was like, maybe traveling every week was killing me. I didn't even realize it. But now I'm like, I don't necessarily, now I feel like I'll probably go back to traveling maybe once a month. I'm not going to do every week anymore. But so it didn't change. It just went from face-to-face to Zoom. That was the biggest difference.
Wow. So did you see an increase or decrease in business, or it stayed steady?
I honestly feel like it technically was an increase since I added on that layer of anti-racism. So okay. I would say it was probably the same, but then because I added on an extra layer, it was more. So, yeah.
Got you. So is there an interview process for you in taking on clients?
Yes. I do. So as you might be able to tell, I'm a scientist and I am a school person, and I know everybody's not. I respect that. I know people hate tests. I know people hate books, but I like them. I like them a lot. So I do have people take a test, but I try to have ask them to give me some grace. Because again, I'm trying to tell you how to profit with your personality. So again, that means I have to come into this knowing that not everybody's going to review my system. So I do have a pre-test that people take to identify if it's even a good fit. Because for me, it's not really about herding cattle. I really want this to be about people that this is a good fit for. So I do have a pre-test for people to take.
Is it pass fail or?
I know it's more about just to help us see, does it align? And oftentimes the funny thing is, even those that don't like test taking, when they finish it, because it's not a test of, do you know the answers? It's a test of introspection. It's a test to reflect. So you can really understand where your business is and what you can do to change it, to improve it. So oftentimes by the time people finish answering all these questions that help them think about their business, they're like, I already know what I need to do. And I'm like, well, that's a win too. If you know that some of this is you just haven't put the time in, and this helped you to stop and think about where you need to change your schedule, that's a win.
You said that you were big on books. What's one of your favorite business books?
Okay, honestly, this is weird. And the reason why I say it's weird is because it's a book that I actually think can help everybody in our industry, but I know the author, some people feel is kind of fluffy. But Grant Cardone's book, The 10X, that's actually one of my favorite books, because what it talks about, and I think it's important because when you see these market fluctuations with 10x, it's all about the principle of whatever you think you need to do, multiply it by 10. Just be prepared to always do more. Never just sit back like, oh, well, I'll just do this. I'll just make 10 calls today. Always be prepared to do more. If you're always pushing yourself to do more, you'll have an abundance. So I like that book for that reason.
10x, yeah. Uncle G.
Yeah. Some people don't really like him because they feel like he's a little, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. But I like the book.
Right. Definitely. What is one of your favorite non-business books, but has helped you in your business? Because you're a reader.
I am. So I've got all these books sitting right here. Let's see. So because again, I'm on my anti-race and black power kick. This book, The Color of Compromise by Jamar Tisby. This book has, as well as I don't have it handy. Also, The Color of Law, which is also another book. They're both about racism. One is about racism in real estate, so the red line and all of that stuff. But then The Color of Compromise is just even how America in general has been complicit in racism, and just how it's deeper than many of us even imagine, right? So often we just think, oh, well, that was 30 years ago, that was 50 years ago, but so many of the structure that we see today was built, and they talk about it in these two books. So
awesome. In terms of real estate, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I still see myself doing what I'm doing. I'm just more of I'm building out my training company. So that's kind of what I see, is building it out even more. I don't know what that exactly means, but I can definitely say over the past 5 years, that's ultimately been my goal, is to keep building it out. And it definitely is night and day different than what it was when I started. So I want to keep growing the training company. And the more, like we started off talking, the more I'm talking to real estate agents of all colors, of all ages, of all genders, of all, sexual orientations, I am finding out that we, as the professionals, we don't even know certain things. And if we don't know it, how on God's green earth are we going to help those in our community? We're not going to do a good job of it. So I keep seeing there's a bigger need for education. So I want to build it out, and I'm just thinking about how to do it. And like I said, I've already been doing training in other countries. So I want to really build it out, to build it out globally. That's my goal.
Right. So what's real estate like in Singapore?
Yeah. In some of these countries, and I'm not going to say Singapore is a hot mess, because it's not, but I've got some countries where agents will call me and want coaching. And how here in the US, we have written contracts. It does not count if it's not in writing.
Right. Other
places still have oral contracts. It's a mess when you start to look at other places, and it's like, I'm grateful to be an American, for sure. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are not law. They're not required. Let me say it that way. They're not required, which means a lot of shady dealings happen in some of these overseas places that the agents call me about. So yeah.
When you said that, I was like, I wonder what it's like over, like how the market is in different countries like Singapore and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're talking about here being taken advantage of and how there's inequities, and boy, these other places, it's obviously for a lot of these countries, it's not based on skin color because for them that's not even a thing, but it's often worse because you literally have people that can just walk up and lay a claim on your property. And it's like, excuse you, and there's not the same level of recourse that we have here. So,
wow. So I could just go, the land been sitting there, and start building.
It's going to be who has the biggest, I don't want to say guns, but might as well. It's like, who can defend this property in some places? If you can defend it, it's yours. So,
wow, that's crazy. Well, Doc, I know that you have some things to do as we talked about before the podcast. And I want to be respectful of your time. For those who want to follow you or reach out to you on social media and also learn more about your coaching program, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so everything for me is Learn with Dr. Lee. So that's my website, learnwithdrlee.com, and Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Learn with Dr. Lee.
Awesome. Well, I definitely appreciate your time. I look forward to us collaborating on a few things. I've got a couple of ideas, and
we got a game, Blackopoly.
We got a game, Blackopoly. Yeah, Blackopoly. We're gonna get it. Definitely look forward to working with you and doing some things here in the future. And thank you. I take it as an honor for you coming on. And thank you, Karen, for connecting us. And her podcast is awesome too. So I look forward to talking to you soon, and have a good one.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Bye-bye. If you like this podcast, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. And I'm your host, Kevin Jefferson. Have a great day.